I feel like it's the complexity of the language being used to communicate the mathematics. It's not really
Yeah.
the mathematics itself that's daunting. It's the language being used and all this ridiculous, you know, over complicated way of explaining simple ideas. You know, and we can go back to now what you were talking about. You simplify basically. We can break down all mathematical phenomena and honestly all natural phenomena, and we can explain it very simply.
Oh, yeah.
Division, multiplication, addition, or subtraction. And here's an example. Even with aging, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you look at cancer, for example, right?
Yeah.
You can see that cancer is a cell that's aging exponentially, right?
Yeah.
Right?
And what
So,
are exponents?
exactly, right? But, you can,
Right.
but a human, for example, a whole human being is progressing in a more discrete way because eventually you die, but you don't die that fast. So we can explain all these concepts with basic math, with basic symbols. The division, multiplication, additional, subtraction. So go into that because I love that analogy, man.
I mean, yeah. So I mean, when you really think about it, man, when you're doing, I mean, I need to brush up on my calculus again. Like, like, you know what I'm saying? And even in trigonometry though, a lot of this stuff, I mean, what else are you doing? You're adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. It's all the stuff that you learn. A fraction is division.
Yep.
All of the stuff that you learned, and by the time you were 9, are the tools that you need.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is again, it depends on the problem. It depends on how I'm communicating the problem. Exactly. But more often than not, those are the tools. Those are the same tools we've been doing and using for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Multiplying, dividing. If you look around, and the more I thought about it, when I look at geometry, when I look at things in nature, what am I seeing? And those things kind of help me as I look around me communicate the idea better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I said that to my kids. When you think of multiplication, what do you think of? Sometimes it's a visual thing. Mm-hmm. You know, I am kind of I don't think it's been formally recognized. So let me keep that clear. I do believe in the idea of synesthesia, which is where, and maybe everybody does it, but like you kind of cross senses at the same time a lot.
Okay.
Right. Meaning when I hear music, I see pictures.
Yeah.
When certain people, they eat certain things, they see things, certain stuff like that. When you get all of the sensory ideas in there, it becomes so much easier to communicate. But that is what a lot of math is. What else do we see happening around us? When people say it's a universal language, I get what they're trying to say, right? But at the end of the day,
it's our language. It's our language. It's our language.
It's our language, and it is a very shared human experience that we're having and witnessing, adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. And when you really kind of get to the root of things, I kid you not, it was really what helped me think about that was my former capoeira teacher, who he really broke down like all the flourishes, all the flips, all the things are really just combinations of some of the most basic parts. And when you get the basic parts down and you combine them, that's when you start getting all the great stuff. But at the end of the day, what are you really using, right? What are we focusing on? And when you focus and really try to figure out what that is, when you narrow it down, it helps you get through a problem a lot easier when you just say, okay, what do I have? What am I really trying to do here?
Exactly. Yeah, so exactly. And it's like, so basically it's like you said, like we can literally represent all knowledge systems from physics to chemistry to whatever. You're either compressing or you're expanding. Simple. Thermodynamics, astrophysics, cosmos, it doesn't matter what system you're dealing with. You're either compressing or you're expanding. Now, let's touch on one more thing. You mentioned the word.
Hold on, New. I have to tell you something. Understand something, bro. And this is why I'm really happy that we're talking. The fascination of all the stuff that's around us, these kind of curiosities and these kind of questions, that's why I teach, and that's why I love these questions in this discussion. But like when you really kind of take those things and then start to just apply it, man, that's what makes the conversations way more interesting and a lot more fun. You know? So yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No worries. You mentioned the word synesthesia, and so I've always wondered about so my question for you is, do you think that it's the norm for our senses to be independent, or is it the norm for our senses to be cohesive, right? Because my guess is that, because I'm a polymath, and when I say I'm a polymath, it's not that my brain is special, is that I like to take in things from all mediums, from all perspectives. That way I get a more complete picture. Like we said earlier, even math is incomplete. So who am I to base my truth on math alone? It's incomplete. So I have to consume it. I see like a pie, like a pie, like a circle. I have to fill in all the little pies before I can get the whole picture, right? So my question for you is synesthesia. I know it's a biological thing or whatever, psychological or whatever, but my question is, would that synesthetic framework, would that be the more natural framework for humans? Are humans naturally, if all of our senses, like you said, if they all communicated in tandem with each other to experience the environment, would we be more complete? And if that's the case, what are we going through right now? What's calcifying that's forcing us to be singular in our intake of data, of information?
Woo, boy, you're hitting on some good ones.
Now think about it, man, because I don't know either. I'm thinking, I'm like, this is
look, a lot of it is philosophical, right? So synesthesia, we all take in a lot of our world. Like the part that made math make sense to most kids, especially up to that point, is because we use sensory things. We use food, we use cookies, we use rewards, basically. We use some kind of thing to communicate the math most of the time anyway, that makes sense. I have so many people telling me that they have dyscalculia. They're telling me that they're dyscalculia, which is the math version of dyslexia. You have no number sense. You have no sense of addition. You have no sense of subtraction. You look at numbers and they don't mean you have a hard time connecting it together. And I have a lot of times people telling me that. I may have had a person or two that had a form of it, right? But most of the times when I ask kids, can you do add, subtract, multiply, divide, all that stuff? Okay, then you're good. There is a very important aspect of our lived experience understanding those things, right?
Yeah.
So let me see. There was another aspect to your question though. Okay. So first of all, that sensory understanding, right? Okay, that sensory understanding. That's something that helps people understand the building blocks, number one, right? The way that I teach is understanding and hearing things and talking to people, being social and being like, wait a minute, when you do this, you feel this. When you hear this song, this comes up to you. And that's kind of cool because we all are still having our own different perspective of a lot of things, even though you and I could hear a song and we both love that song. We both dance to that song, but how you experience that song doesn't necessarily match mine. But that's what makes us human. That's what compassion is. That's what a lot of those things are. So that's why I teach math in especially, and I'm going to borrow a sentence from my boy Clarence, who I was just building with last night, that when you teach these things in a constructive way and not a destructive way, then it becomes way more participatory. Everybody enjoys it more. So that's the angle that I'm always going to come with it from. Yes, there are such things as, you know, I've been reading a lot now where now they're trying to tell people that there's no such thing as a right or wrong answer. Well, sometimes, but let's not get out of hand here, right? Yeah. But it's okay. If you get it wrong, try it again. Not either it's right or it's wrong. It's you made a mistake. Try it again. And then you can keep practicing it to where you don't make the mistake anymore. And suddenly you're better at it.
Exactly.
So, you know, that's the way that I come at it. Now, is it a more natural way? I mean, I don't know, but I think that it begs the question of, you know, again, going back to the fact that this stuff is thousands of years old. Why wouldn't I communicate it that way? And if it's thousands of years old, we start getting in a whole lot of human nature questions. We get into this, we get into that. Now, there's some people, maybe they like to be taught in a way where they're, you know, where the teacher is holding strict to them like the, you know, like your fictional piano teacher. I don't know. Some people like that. But again, knowing that everybody sees things differently, understanding that and having compassion for that's what makes it more inviting. And that's when somebody makes a mistake or they're having a hard time figuring it out, then I can, you know, that's the student you attend to, you know? So
yeah, exactly. So I'm not saying that logic is my foundational framework here. But logically speaking, wouldn't it be more sensible, given that humans have whatever the senses we have, right? Wouldn't it be more sensible for our educational systems to use those senses to their maximum? You know, like having a child sit on a desk and sitting straight and doing all this stuff, to me, is incomplete. It reduces their experience of the mathematics. Right? Going to what you're saying, making it fun, making it more participatory, making it more natural, right? Like,
well, I mean, listen, as I've told people, you know, sometimes being logical is the problem. Yeah, I tell people, oh, yeah, that sounds very logical. Wish somebody would do it. Right? Like sometimes the most logical, like, you know, that's going to be, I think, a fundamental human nature thing is even when it is logical. I mean, that's the part of the reason why I'm, you know, a proponent of the mathematical thinking is at some point, it's a good idea to be more logical and efficient. Right. And again, behind that is still an idea of compassion, but a lot of people don't think that compassion is logical. I do. You know, I think that it's logical to have compassion. I think it's logical to understand that people are different, but there's also a way that we can frame things to where we can, you know, handle problems or discussions or any of those things. But, you know, yeah, if our school system wanted to change, it would, but, you know, it would be a great idea. It's a logical idea.
Yeah. And this actually was just me sort of circling back to our idea before of, you know, we've had civilizations in the past, like empires that existed thousands and thousands of years ago. And I mean, eventually they collapsed, but they had systems that might have been more advanced than our system, right? And so my question then is, you know, if they were able to survive for that long with their mathematical systems, you know, why are we struggling so much with our system? And is there a comparison between those? And if that's the case, are we going in the right direction when it comes to civilization? So I think we're going to take a bigger picture look now. You know, as a civilization, are we going in the right direction when it comes to like our reduced frameworks? Or do you think that we should go back to our more deductive, more ancient frameworks that were super simple but suffice when it came to modeling nature, which is all we have to do from my perspective. Right. There's no need for all the extracurricular shit, you know, which some would say is what brings in the inefficiencies in the system. Right. So go ahead.
You know, there's a lot of you know, it really depends on where you're coming from. Some people don't think that it's possible to, you know, and shout out to your name, New Globe Utopia. Most people don't think that a utopia is possible. Funny enough, I'm DJing a party this weekend called Utopia, so it's all together. I love it.
By the way, I'm going to interrupt you. By the way, utopia is the word of the future, and I'm saying that now, and I bet everything on it. That's the word of the future. That's the word that's going to be the most used word the next 500 years.
You know, that is interesting, and I wouldn't doubt it, and I feel it, and I'm actually, you know, in one class that I was teaching, I think it was an English class, somehow we started looking at utopias in literature or the ideas of utopias, a lot of these things, right?
Yeah.
And what is so fascinating about people that traveled back in, you know, and when you read the letters or books or any of these things, these diaries, whatever it is, that people are just, oh, wow, look at this. Oh my God, they do this way better than we do this. This is a way better idea. That sharing of things, right? When you think about all the root of trade, the trades that happen all around the world, you know, the way that I think about it is that no, like we couldn't have gotten this far without caring about one another, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So you want to raise a better society. Now, being more advanced doesn't necessarily just mean being able to talk through a computer.
Exactly.
Because if I have an actual need to do it, sure.
Yeah.
It's also very logical for me to say I don't need it, whether or not I could even make it in front of me right now. If I'm smart enough to create whatever I want, but do I need it? Wisdom is kind of a different thing, right? And so the ability to the emotional side of a lot of this, our development, our maturity, the way that we teach all this stuff. Again, that's the reason why I teach this stuff kind of in the back of my mathematics, is so that people can kind of then mature their thought a little bit and really ask themselves questions, even to themselves. Why do I think this way? Does this make sense? Do I just not agree with it? But you know, there's a book that, and this is the initial thought that I just want to hop back to, is that there's a book that I have called Bowling Alone. Bowling Alone, I think by Robert Putnam. This is also, I think, part of my urban planning background. When you look at urban planning, when you look at societies and all of that stuff, there's a reason why cities, utopias, communities are together. They're for safety, right? The Bowling Alone is basically talking about the loss of social capital. So that there's this idea of social capital is our camaraderie, our friendship, going out bowling, playing baseball, community things, right? And that we are becoming a very much more individualized society. And as we start individualizing, we kind of lose our compassion. We lose some of those strings. Now, I think there's always going to be a correction of some sort. There's always going to be some kind of balance of some sort, because, you you felt we got to connect on Clubhouse because we were having conversation, and that's what keeps that going, right? But again, finding like-minded people is a thing, but it's also culture. I think American culture has become very individualized. So again, how we teach, how we tell people to get their grades, how we tell people to do these things, everything's just filtered in that and not in something bigger. So do I think that we're more advanced? Probably not, because
I agree.
On my Yomath.study Instagram, if people follow me, they will see, especially on my stories, I'm also putting up like ancient architecture, and people are like, how did they cut this when they didn't have electricity? As far as we know, they didn't. So
and they were more precise than we are today.
Precise with nothing, and be so advanced? And then you do ask yourself, if they were more advanced in communicating or whatever, did they have more compassion? Probably. And from what I read in a lot of historical things, yeah, there seems to be something lost along the way that we could stand getting back to.
Hey, Yohan, look at this, right? And I get a lot of flack when I say this, right? And I'm going to be blunt. I'm not very impressed by Western civilization. When I look at this, right? When I see this thing right here, this phone,
sure.
I'm not impressed by the phone. I'm not impressed because look at this. To make this phone required minerals, required us going to nature, taking natural things, and then using them to help us communicate with each other, right? But this same communication can be done at a biological systems level, right? So, but this would only happen if we are optimally efficient as biological systems, right? Yeah. So what I'm basically saying is that, to be blunt, the current school of thought is not a natural school of thought. The way their perception of nature itself is not natural, which is why we have all of our systems incomplete. because they're not modeled to be cohesive or to work with nature. They're actually modeled to work against nature, right? And they're both valid systems. But the only issue is that the incomplete system has one faulty variable, and that's those systems collapse.
You know, math, like I said, math is, to me, is very tied to culture, how you teach it, right? And so, no, I agree with you that I think a lot of the Western philosophy, because it is very well understood and recognized, there is a difference between Western philosophical thought or Western approaches and a lot of the rest of the world, and a lot of areas of the rest of the world. And yeah, I do think that, and again, because it's not just America. I mean, there's lots of other places where this is also being taught. So let me not just make it just that way, but the potential that I think our culture has by thinking in a more teamwork and team effort way would be a whole lot more beneficial overall. And again, it's very, I think that there's a lot of Western imperialism in the way that math is taught and how math is taught, which is why I start my classes off telling people the history of geometry and algebra and what, luckily in the textbook I have, it kind of quotes some ancient Chinese philosophers. It talks about people, Persian folks, Egyptian folks. I bring in West African math. I'm bringing in designs from Native American cultures and Mayan and Aztec and all that stuff, because there is no possible way we would get this far without it. So in a natural way, I feel what you're saying, and I already can tell, and I know that you're probably getting a lot of philosophical arguments because there's a lot of accepted definitions of certain things, right? But a lot of our philosophy is also built off of math, but because it's theoretical, right? Because there's a certain amount of theory in it that whatever, again, that's the perspective thing, right? That's the debate. But if you had to try to get them to mathematically pinpoint something, they can still solve the problem, but their approach to the problem and their approach to other problems in the world is going to probably be a little bit different. So that's why I do, again, it's teamwork. We don't have to, the Western approach is very much like me versus you, right versus wrong. How much, and then when people talk about, I wanted to learn financial math. Well, you did in algebra and algebra 2, but you just didn't think that it would apply. Right. So we just try to, a lot of this, this individuality, it doesn't get us nowhere. And yeah, there's limitations to individuality. There's lots of great things, but there's also a lot of destructive qualities.
So this goes to the argument of indigenous versus modern, or which is the same argument as unity versus individualism, like you said, right? And the Western model is very individualistic.
Yeah.
The modern model. And, you know, not to plug my book, but that's literally what
Plug the book, man.
Try to do with this
Put
book.
work into it.
So basically, you know, I talked about this with you earlier. I said that, you know, my goal with this book was to basically come and say, hey, I'm going to redefine the fundamental framework of intelligence, what everything emerged from, what everything is built from, and how everything interacts. Because we don't understand that clearly.
Well,
right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So, and you know, this sounds crazy, but right here is
wow.
my simplify. I know it's symbols. It's circle, triangle, and infinity, right? So the triangle is one side, but normally you'll see an equal sign. Whenever you do any math problem, it's an equal sign, right? We're going to replace that with an infinity symbol. And here's the difference. The equal sign is talking about the equality between two things, right? This symbol is talking about the nuance that exists between those two things, or this the thing that connects those two things. So it's not about this. It's not about the actual symbol. It's about the meaning behind it.
It's kind of like the what did they say? Did they say that they found a light coming on the other side of a black hole
recently,
or around it in a sense? But no, I know what you're saying. That the equal sign just makes it look kind of like it makes it look like a one of those machines that just plops out, right?
Exactly.
There's a spectrum that it goes through. There's a transformation, a whole, kind of a universe that it goes through. No, I get that. Now the thing is again, I have no problem with that, and I get it, and I think that's actually a beautiful way to think about it, right? But yeah, a lot of the symbols that we have in math textbooks, we have to really you're a designer, right? You're a designer?
I'm a polymath, architect, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
There's no term for it, really.
Dude, I am fascinated by people who do design. I'm fascinated by people like even when you look at crosswalks, if you look at street signs, stop signs, any of these things, the way that they're designed is very mathematical. There's a very important communication that happens when you do that. I can't think of the name of this documentary that I saw. I don't even remember how I found it. It was on Netflix. I'm going to look it up. But it was about the husband and wife couple who are designers, and they designed the New York train map, the more modern New York train map. And I was really fascinated because they were designing all kinds of stuff. They were just making stuff. It was art. It was also very communicative, right? And so being an artist and being a designer, having to design things, symbolize things, and like you said, communicate a nuance, right? Now, some people, again, would argue if something is equal, then the equal sign would make sense because things that are equal are plain.
But equality is a useless idea. Equality only stabilizes infinity. That's what people don't understand. It just stabilizes it and makes it discrete for us to play with it. That's it.
And but here's what and the thing is we standardize it in a certain way because that's also the way that now we build our computer system. We built so many things around us like that, but that doesn't mean that we can't, go in and change it. But the design couple, right? The most interesting part of it to me that I love that why I recommend it, because I want to talk about it with people, right? Is they designed a teacup and a saucer, and the cup would lock into the saucer, right? So you didn't really have to knock it over or whatever, but it would not lock in there, right? They were trying to go to market to sell these things, And I guess at one point he had to redesign it or discontinue it without the lock, because he said, especially in, I guess in America, especially, people were spilling their coffee. And he said, why can't you just be more civilized and just do like most people and do half a cup? Why did you have to fill it up to the brim? But no, that's how people do things. And design and your intent behind design, and that's why I love it. People that make logos, all of that stuff, man, that stuff it's fascinating, but it is very hard. But that's also what makes being an artist fun. That's what makes all of that stuff fun. But design and real communication, especially through visuals. I gotta get a copy. I'm tripping. I put that out there. I'm buying a copy. You should too. I'm buying a copy. You see me. But the idea of intelligence, like you're saying, and where I see that you're going is, on a deep humanistic level. What am I trying to really say? And what can I do to symbolize that? That's what hieroglyphs are. That's what all of this stuff is. That's what we're doing all this time.
This stuff sends chills through my body, man. Like, and here's the crazy part, right?
Yeah.
I think that symbols hold more information than numbers.
Absolutely. Well, no, here's the thing. Numbers are symbols. Again, they're Hindu symbols. They're
derivative. They're derivative symbols that we derive from the triangle. Remember that, right? Now,
is that right?
Yes. So check this out.
I'm about to look, but I believe it. I can believe it. I've been looking up, like they were saying that they would have been created out of angles, but I wasn't really sure how.
So the triangle and the circle are the fundamental building blocks of mathematics, right? Mm-hmm. So here's the main argument of my book, is that symbolic intelligence is the most fundamental intelligence, right? And this is the part that all the so-called Western philosophers and mathematicians missed out. This is the reason why Einstein's and the Paul Dirac's couldn't really solve the notion of how do we unify gravity and electricity. It's like, whoa, these are two systems, but are they two systems, right? And they use all these mathematical formulations, E equal mc squared. Remember the equal sign. They keep using the equal sign. They keep trying to balance energy with mass and speed of light. But that's not how it works, because it's not a discrete system. It's a symbiotic system. And the mistake they made, bro, is that the most fundamental equation for nature is symbolic. And that's what I did with my book, is like, I'm saying that fundamentally we can define intelligence simply as this. Sounds ridiculous, but with these three formulations, these three symbols, we can recreate the entire universe. And I know it sounds crazy, but we can.
Hey, listen, first of all, I think that especially if you have a vision, go for it. So I'm not going to call you crazy. I do think, but I do think that, the only, I mean, I don't have any pushback on any of that, because the thing is, I've had a lot of friends, especially as of recently, becoming more interested in math, because they are thinking about symbols a lot and the communication of those symbols and things, right? I have yet to dive deep in it. Like, well, let me ask you this, because you were saying the triangle and circle. Is there a reason why you didn't use squares or rectangle?
Check this out.
Interesting. So explain that to me a little bit. Tell me more.
Right? The MC square, right? We can use that, and in place of that, we can just put an arbitrary phenomena called the circle, right? So the E, which represents, energy is an arbitrary constant. It could be anything, right? So fundamentally, we can represent that as the triangle, but there's something that exists between those two things, and that's where the nuance comes in, right?
Right.
That's the dimensions. You understand what I'm saying?
You know, what's really interesting is, you know, no, look, mathematical symbols, if we're not going to at least either add to them or give variations of them, or something, because what you're describing in a sense is, yeah, like you're saying, this idea of transformation, right?
Emergence.
Right. So
it makes you think, right? Because you know, it's like
now here's what's funny is that actually when I was looking up because the delta symbol like is the triangle, right, in math, and the delta symbol, or at least for this, that means change or difference, which is strange. That's the other thing, is that if I'm supposed to think of change or difference, even when I looked at like between calculus, chemistry, certain things where you have to use the delta, physics, they're wrapping my head around the symbol and its communication. If the symbol isn't connecting with me, right?
Exactly.
You know, all of this, look, man, all of this needs to be discussed, especially as you're saying, because if there's a nuance to the argument that's not being presented, go for it. You know what I'm saying? That's what I say. I can't prove it, but I can't argue with you.
So look at this, right? And here's where we're gonna get a little bit political, right?
Okay.
I'm African, right? And I think that the reason why this problem was not solved, or hasn't been solved yet, was because the people that are trying to solve it just don't have the capacity to process it, because they themselves are a subsequent system.
Well,
so let me give an example. Imagine, I'll do it like this. Try to make it more reasonable, okay? So imagine, you know how whenever you look at the universe, you look at any sort of system growth, they show you how it's concentric and it grows out, right?
Right.
So proximity wise, the phenomena closest to the center point is the phenomena that has the closest efficiency when it comes to understanding nature. Right? The phenomena that is all the way at the edge, at the most outward concentric circle, has the least connection to that information, right? So what I mean by that is that, you know, not every human has the capacity to process this kind of thinking, which is why I get so much pushback when I try to elaborate on what my theory is and how it's so simple, right? When I speak to scientists, they think that it's supposed to be some 8-page math formulation with fractions and weird symbols.
Right.
And I say, no, bro. The solution to everything is 3 symbols.
Right. And
we can solve all problems.
It goes right back to what we said earlier. Simple things have enough complexity in them. And sometimes the simplest things, again, are the things that it's defined, but not. It's a concept. It's a thing that we get that sometimes can be hard to communicate. But yeah, communicating it better, especially through symbols. Oh yeah, I'm for it all day. And the thing is that wrapping your mind around it. Let me just also skip to this for you. Okay. You're an African man, you're a black man, I'm a black man. And what I've kind of been able to sit in is either sometimes knowing whether or not I'm right, knowing whether or not I have an argument. They could be right, I could be wrong, whatever. But also just, you know, thinking about things also in the way of like, sometimes people get it, they just want to argue. Sometimes people get it, they just want to argue. It's one of those things where that's what the thing about logic that sometimes bothers people is it's not necessarily that they don't get it, but it's not what they want it to be, right? That
it's also the messenger. It's also the messenger. You know, I'm a young African black dude, you know, and like I said, a lot of people, their instinct is, who the hell are you to think that you solve the hardest problem?
Of course it is.
In human civilization. who do you think you are? So it's not even about what I'm saying. It's about who do you think you are? And they reject the idea from the get-go, right? And you know what's crazy? I solved the hardest problem that we've had as a civilization, right? Yeah. But it's going to take a very long time for the world to accept it because of those constraints, because it's coming from someone like me. But the irony is that it could only come from someone like me. That's the crazy part.
And look, man, you know, I'll put it to you like this, because this is my overall belief that you know, folks like you, me, people that believe in higher things, right? That believe in really get into the core of things, right? Even when we talk about math, there's an opposite to us, right? Yeah. And so the thing is yeah, it may take a very long time, because you know what? We just got this. We just got here. We just got to a lot of this technology, like you said, the phone and all that other stuff. That's why, like, again, when I go back and I look back at things, I look back at like, wow, actually, at the end of the day, this is a collection of stuff that we already had, that somebody had enough time and energy and resources. Oh, wow, cool. Right. But when I try to get my kids to do the math without a calculator, that's when it's way more fascinating. And so, yeah, how did you build that structure with just chisels and people, whatever, right? And again, the idea of intelligence, just like a lot of things that we worship, or things that we say are the ultimate, or things that we even label as being the truth, most of the time we assume that it has to have a white face on it. And so if somebody tells you that they solved it, especially, yeah, if they are Black and all that, which, you know, there have been so many truths. And that's the thing, again, is we're talking about math, and math being connected to philosophy and science and all of those things. I am a spiritual person. I don't say that I claim one religion over another. I often fall back into Christianity and a lot of the parables in that and the stories there. But as I've looked at other faiths and looked at a lot of things, there's a math to it, and it may be slightly explained slightly differently. But the math that we said earlier, the Western math, the extensions of the science, the extension of all of these things came from still multiple cultures, multiple people. Our medicine, our science, our diet, our whatever is a collection of things. And what the Western philosophy, the Western approach and thinking is very limited, because it only thinks about what it doesn't have.
Scarcity. It's a weird scarcity
mindset, right? And so, yeah, you are going to be limited when you think limited, right? But when you really branch out and you think of all of these things working with you, again, the compassion, then yeah, oh, that problem solved it. Matter of fact, not only did New solve it, and probably especially explain it his way and efficiency for the time that we're in, people have done this before. It's been done in different ways, and we're trying to still solve more problems. We ain't gonna run out of problems, right? But especially the big ones, we can do it. You know what I mean? And if New has figured it out, and when it translates, you know what I mean, then it's going down. But remember, New, you know what I'm saying? Even for those that are coming in peace and in light and with enlightenment, that there's opposites to us, and there's people that get it, but they don't want other people to get it. So it is what it is. But now we have enough technology to where we can record it and disseminate it. So great.
Here, just add one more thing, right, Yohan? So here's the thing that I realized was the boundary for understanding, right? So like I said, I'm a polymath, or I utilize polymathic thinking or polymathic learning methods, right? I just use every medium. I consume it, art, music, whatever, right? Yeah. So when I wrote this book, because of my way of thinking, my way of perceiving the world, the book itself is also designed to be, in a way, for everyone. it's multi-dimensional. So I wanted the book to be understood by children.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, PhDs at Oxford and Cambridge and Harvard and MIT could also parse through the book because it's designed in a way that they can understand it also. So what I tell people, like, because some guy told me, bro, I read the book and I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I said, that's okay. It's okay. You have to experience the book. You don't have, it's not about reading the book. Remember I told you earlier about utilizing multiple senses.
Yes.
I was like, you have to experience the book, bro. It's not about reading the book. Like, just the cover image of my book, for example,
it's beautiful.
It has all the info you need. That's it.
Right.
You don't need to read the book.
Yeah, like, you know, here's the thing, man. Like, even when I saw the drawings, right? And that's what's deep is, and this is what's important.
Those are hand drawn, by the way. Those are hand drawn, by the way.
Here's where you should start. You should start make sure you start having discussion groups, right? Because the thing is, again, man, some people, sometimes it's not that they don't get it. They're not sure if what they're feeling or what they're thinking is actually coming through or anything like that. Like, look, when I give my kids worksheets, right, I just explain to them everything. I just told them the definitions. I just put the notes on the board, right? And here's the thing. This is all about whether or not you actually want to teach it, or if you want it to be that those that are going to get it are going to get it. That's the approach also of an artist, right? But I'll say things to my kids. I will tell them all the definitions. The definitions will be there on the paper. And I'll tell them the answer sheet is right there. The answers are there. I want you to look at the questions and ask yourself, do you trust yourself to understand what I just told you to do these problems? I'll still get kids that'll come up, I'm not sure if this is, and I said, well, what did this say? It says this and this and this, right? Yeah. So what does that mean? Oh, it means this. Right. Okay. It's assurance sometimes, right? If people walk in on that book, even looking at the cover, and they feel intimidated, if they feel like, wow, that's beautiful, but I don't know what it means, I'm not sure. As soon as people just become unsure, they say, I don't get it.
You reject it.
Yeah, they say, I don't get it. But instead, they didn't come with questions. They said, I don't get it, as if, okay, I'm supposed to get it. I'm supposed to download it. But, you know, honestly, man, true understanding, I think, comes from people willing to take a little bit more time. We're also in a point right now where people want to get it. They don't want to take time to get it. They don't want to say, like you said, experience. Sometimes experience in a book is reading it over and over and over again.
Exactly.
And through it and just being like, oh man. And then when you start thinking about it, you're all like, you know, that's what discussion groups I think are good for, man. I would encourage you to do that.
I would love to do some with you.
Put out a weekly question or survey or ask questions, because again, even math books, they go through different editions. What edition is that one?
Yeah, this is edition 1.
Edition 1, man. You may look, man. That's the thing, man. Because you know, the beautiful thing is there might be a little bit more. There might be just a little bit something else. There might be just, you know, again, man, when you're talking about the human experience of it, I know that it's there because I feel it, but I would have a lot of questions. Like, when I look at that cover, I feel intelligent thought. I feel, you know, beauty and things that are in harmony. And that's what's great about geometry. I mean, I know a lot of people talk about sacred geometry and a lot of the spiritual things behind that and stuff. And, you know, again, I'm in the middle of it all, but you know, just by the communication of of patterns, it's huge. It's huge. Yeah, man.
I agree with you. And absolutely.
I need you at some point. Where are you from again?
Cameroon.
I want you to, at some point, if you know how or can ask anyone, especially from Cameroon, the math behind patterns, especially the fabric patterns, African fabric patterns. You know what I mean? That
So
stuff
you know
is
what's funny?
now I look at everything completely different.
Yohan, go to my website right now. It's called alexanderngoot.com. You will see I have my African garment on, right? And if you look close to what I'm wearing, it's all geometry. And I was speaking to my family recently, and they told me that, you know, those symbols in those African garments aren't random symbols. Those are information being conveyed over time, but we don't even realize it.
Yeah. No, it's real. I mean, what you wear, colors, lots of things, man. There's so much communication in so many things that when you really sit down to appreciate them, you think about it so much differently. And you think about what fits me. How does it work for me? All that kind of stuff. But no, please, like, I'm really, at some point, I want a full breakdown of of the whole thing, the whole shirt and the hat. I want it all.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, man. Yo, we should host some rooms together on Clubhouse, because I would love to go over some stuff with you, man. And
what is it like over there right now? Like day by day, especially now that I have a day job, like, and maybe it's my feed too, but like, you know, I've gotten to the point where, again, there's so many, you know what I'm really trying to figure out the math of, let's say, liars. The math of liars. That's the thing, is like, you know, again, that's what again, when you talk about overcomplicating things, when things are transparent, sometimes it's not that hard or whatever, right? But some people, man, they just live to argue, just to argue. And Clubhouse sometimes is fun for all that, you know what I'm saying? I like to argue sometimes. But sometimes it just got to points where I'm like, man, you're not even opening your mind to what I'm saying. You know what I mean? People just be coming in there and lying, just cat everywhere.
You know what's funny? It's what I realized on Clubhouse too, and that's why it's kind of. I don't know how I feel about it, but you know, I could be speaking on a stage and making all my points, and you know, it doesn't resonate with anyone. But once you know, someone from academia or someone that's of, you know, European descent comes in and agrees with me, right? Then they become receptive to what I was saying. But it's almost like I was speaking to myself for 10 minutes. And when someone comes and says, "Oh, wow, Alex, you're right. I didn't think of it like that," then everyone goes, "Oh, I have to follow him now." It's very weird for me. It's very weird.
No. See, here's the thing. See, this is what's funny. I also think it's also especially a cultural thing. You know, when you take your approach to math with even people from Europe to, you know what I'm saying,
Asia, India.
Different places, they vibe with it. They think about it that way. Especially an American audience, certain things, even maybe probably British or whatever have you, they'd be like, "What are you talking about?"
They call you crazy.
It doesn't mean that. How could you ever do that? It's like, no, man, actually, what if you took that same idea and just like chilled out?
Exactly.
How about if you just chill out first and ask yourself, could it be this way? Do you want to debate about it? Sure. Okay, let's debate and let's have a functional conversation. Not just and then when the European, I've had German dudes, everything, they were like, actually, you know, right. That is a
and then then they all start listening after, and that's so discouraging, because it's like, dude, it's like, you know, are you guys just followers? Or I mean, it's weird for me, especially with, you know, African or Black audience, when they do that. I'm just like, you know, I'm right here telling you what I think the truth is, and you're unwilling to entertain me until someone else comes and approves that, you know. And that's right. Like, okay, it's weird, but you know, I'm getting used to it.
Yeah, well, that's being social media, especially. Other people co-sign it, it's hot, right? But again, telling the truth sometimes isn't what's popular, even when it's logical. You know what I mean? And but that's why we continue doing what we're doing, right? This is why we do it, because it's got to continue, because it's gonna keep continuing one way or another. And but no, man, like I get on there every once in a while when I have time to kill, or like, you know, my sleep schedule is still all over the place. So it might be 1:30 in the morning. I'll be like, yo, what y'all talking about? I might be in for about 15 minutes, but yo, real open-minded conversation. I mean, yeah, man, we can figure it out to get our, a tribe of some sort, man. But
Absolutely.
I think that at the end of the day, you're on the wave of really digging into something on a different level. And like I said, a lot of people, when they talk about math, we talk about math on how can I just use it? How can I just get an answer? Well, now I don't want to do all that blah 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 blah. You're talking about an approach to the subject that a lot of people just won't do.
Exactly.
So,
exactly. And I'm glad you said that. There's I have a feeling that we overvalue utility, right? So yes, we go, oh, we can utilize that. So now truth becomes things we can use, right?
Yeah.
And that's why we've been stuck on this layer. It's like, wait a minute, truth precedes what we could use. Truth precedes utility, bro. Truth can be used half the time. Right? But so I think just to summarize what we've been talking about, math is a process.
Absolutely.
It's not absolute. It's not universal. It's a process.
It absolutely is. Yep. Yeah. Totally a process, man. And again, lots of people have their way of interpreting that process, or the process that works for them. That's what's really interesting, especially when I talk to people about relationships, right? Talk about any kind of family dynamic, relationships, all of this stuff. It is, I like doing it this way. You're supposed to do it this way. Or I like, and then when you have a difference of process, you got to reconcile it sometimes, right? And it doesn't mean that anybody else is more right or more wrong.
Exactly.
Then sometimes you end up with a person or somebody shows you something which is the greatest, and you be like, whoa, I never thought about it that way. That's a much better process. This is way better. Wow. And being open to really discovering new things, and not just what can I use out of it.
Exactly.
But appreciating it. Like, come on, we could do that. But
exactly.
I think a lot of people think that this is just that it's this fanciful notions and romantic. But no, I look for real evidence of the fact that, again, as I tell people, we would not be here if enough people did not think that way. And I think that if we just, of course, throughout history, we've got murder, we've got this, we've got that, but there's something to be said for knowing that there's such thing as compassion, and there was also a such thing as a world before Western imperialism. And so, you know what I mean? that people also had to work together at some point. So, rather than doing all of this cutting out, let's involve, let's get together, let's think different, not just debate for the sake of debating, but really let's share some ideas. And if we need to get critical, cool. But I can already tell, I already know that a lot of people are going to assume your intelligence because Black intelligence is always still under some sort of filter.
Black male intelligence in particular.
I will definitely attest to that. I mean, a lot, I don't want to go too deep on any of this, but one way or another, but I will say again, when I've gotten Black boys together on math, there's a very big fundamental shift that I see people witness. And the thing is again, a lot of Black males, they are also assumed to be underachievers. But when I have my kids standing up straighter, feeling like they can learn whatever they want to learn, and that the world, that not everything is against them, apparently people are threatened by that. And that's why I said, bro, it ain't you. So Black male intelligence is very undervalued and very invested in, and very underappreciated.
It's suppressed. It's oppressed. And just to summarize what we've been talking about, there's complexity emerges from simplicity. Symbolic intelligence holds more information than mathematical intelligence. And to finalize, we talked about, the variability in, cultures, and how, like, in Africa, for example, if you go to every culture, they have their garment, they have what they wear that symbolizes them. So if you see me, like if you look at my African garment, right? You go to Africa, most Africans that have knowledge can pinpoint exactly where I was born and where I'm from because of what I wear.
Wow.
And I can do the same for most Africans when I see their traditional regalia, right?
Yeah.
Now, to summarize, Utopia. I think Utopia is accomplished by accepting and nurturing this variability, this dimensionality, right? It's not about making things uniform, like the Western idea is like, oh, everyone dress the same, eat the same thing, look the same, like the it's like it's the constraint that they put around humanity.
Yeah.
Antithesis of what we need to accomplish Utopia. And that's how I'm going to end it, right? To go to Utopia, we have to, like you said, compassion and accepting differences and variability in human behavior, human culture, even though people perceive things is unique. So we should accept that, and that's how we achieve Utopia.
I'm on board. That's what I believe. I believe that that's how we get there, or we get closer to it one way or another. But yeah, like, nah, man, I totally agree with you. And I think that when we invest in that intelligence, when we tell somebody that they can or that they're capable, whatever their shortcomings may be here or there, that doesn't mean that they don't have a genius or a role to play or a thing that they can be proud of. I think that and then they become a much more productive citizen. It's really deep to think like how much better overall things can be when we just do simple things. But I think that's a large part of the human struggle is, why aren't we there yet? Right. But I think I feel like there's a definite new energy coming, and I'm behind you on that goal. You know what I'm saying? Because, and I'll tell you straight up, as I've told a lot of people, a lot of leadership is getting tested right now. And so if you're not coming with a good message, if you're not coming with something that that is going to especially unify people so that we can get past a lot of these things, because this pandemic, there's way more things that we're going to have to continually deal with that we've dealt with for thousands of years, one way or another. And, if we're not going to work together, then what's the point?
Exactly. Yeah, man, this is a great conversation, man. I love speaking to you. Whenever we speak, we build, and we have so many insightful things to learn from each other. So I appreciate you joining today. And,
no problem. So, and I have some other friends that I'm gonna, at least send your way. I think they'd love to talk to you too, man. Especially.
Absolutely. Yo, let's set up a.